And we are back with The Chosen Journey. Steve Carsey, Jonathan, The Chosen Lawyer. Steve, I got a list of people here today for you. And I want you to tell me, what do you think they all have in common? You ready?
Yeah.
This is 12 people, okay? Some of them are duplicated. We got Ted Williams, Tony Gwynn, George Brett, Ted Williams, Rod Carew, Larry Walker, Stan Musial, Tony Gwynn, Nomar Garcia Pera, Todd Helton, Ichiro Suzuki, and Barry Bonds. What do all these men have in common?
I'll say they all have won batting titles.
They probably all have won multiples. Maybe not Larry Walker. I know one year I think he did in Colorado, but these are all gentlemen that since 1941 have all hit at least 370. Not a very long list and quite an amazing list. You know what blew me away is the one person I thought, having born and raised in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, is John Olerud. I remember when John Olerud was chasing a magical number and he didn't even finish with a 370 average. So today's episode, Steve, we've been waiting for this for many years. And the person who has come closest to Ted Williams was Tony Gwynn. We've talked about Tony Gwynn many times, one
Mm-hmm.
of the greatest hitters of all time, not just our generation. He finished with a 394 average in 1994. The one person they thought was going to do it. Even Wade Boggs is not on this list. Go figure. You think Tony Gwynn and Wade Boggs go hand in hand, but Tony Gwynn had the one up on there. Today's episode, Luis Arraez, Florida Marlins. What this man is doing, it is out of this world. We're almost at the All-Star break. He's hovering consistently around 400. Steve, are we finally going to see a 400 hitter this year?
It's a long way to go still. There's another half a season to be played, and it's really hard to do. You brought up Gwynn and the 394 average in 1994, and that season got cut short, right? So he would have had another 6 weeks. When you play a 162 game season, the reason it doesn't happen very often is because guys get tired in the middle of August and then usually go through some kind of, you know, slump or just kind of step back a little bit because of, how tired your body can get. And that's why it's really hard to do. But in today's game, with what he's doing, is incredible because there's so much, uh, you know, swing and miss, so much, so many strikeouts by players, and for this guy to have the bat to ball skills that he has and be able to do it in the NL East against some really tough pitching, and obviously because of the balanced schedule, he's playing a whole bunch of teams, in and outside of his division and league. In the American League, they got you know a tough schedule as well. So uh, to watch what he's doing is incredible. I will love to watch the rest of the season and follow him and track him and see if he can get to the point where he's capable of crossing the finish line, so to speak, at the 400 mark, because there's not many milestones, so to speak, that I feel can be broken these days. And this is one that at least he can match at some point.
I mean, the hitter's triple crown, I didn't think we were going to see that ever again. And, Miguel Cabrera being able to pull that off with the Tigers
One
that
of the
year.
easier ones, though, to do, in my
Yeah.
opinion. 56 game hitting streak. Who's going to do that again, right? Uh, you know, Cal Ripken's Iron Man streak. Ain't nobody doing that in today's game. That one will never be broken, in my opinion. So, the Triple Crown, if you're hot and you have power and you can do it, it's one of, I shouldn't say easier ones. I would say it's one of the more attainable ones that you can do. And some of the other ones are just really, really hard.
And we have seen, I mean, we don't talk about the pitching triple crown very often, but that has been reached as well. I think Roger Clemens was the last one, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
But, it's funny because what does those numbers even mean? What a triple crown was to its importance, like batting average these days versus OBP and all these other stats that we get into, wins for pitchers, how much does that really indicate, versus the global sense of their accomplishments. One of the things that really impressed me with Arise, when I really dig into his numbers, I like the fact he does not strike out at all. That's another Tony Gwynn type stat. He literally does not strike out. and it's mind-boggling as far as his numbers go. And he knows how to take a walk. A lot of guys who are good hitters that are 300 plus, if you go throughout the years and check them out, if they hit 320, 330, they hit, but they rarely walked. And so their average and their OBP were hovering around the same. If they could take any kind of walk, now you're looking at 400 plus OBP. That's astronomical. I always had the magic numbers in my head always was a 360 OBP and a 480 slug. You can hit these numbers, you're now in the elite status because you have so many guys that are doing well and have a 600 plus slug, but their OBP is hovering around 300 or less. Yeah, as far as a well-rounded game goes, with Arraez, he does not strike out, and that's a really, really good trait. And a guy who should be at the Rolex store every single week buying him a present is Jorge Soler, because Soler is now having a renaissance. I don't think it's a coincidence. Having Arraez in the lineup with him is helping a lot.
Well, anybody who gets on base in front of you is going to help you a lot. I mean, that's just the way it is. You can go back, I can go back to my playing days in Cleveland. And when you had Kenny Lofton, Omar Vizquel, and Robbie Alomar hitting 1, 2, 3, and then you had Manny Ramirez hitting 4, Jim Thome hitting 5, those two guys reap the benefits of the first 3 guys getting on base. And you go back and look at the years, 98 to 2001, what kind of RBIs that Manny Ramirez had, or Jim Thome had. It's incredible because, the table setters were able to get on base. These guys aren't, the Kenny Loftons, it's not like a Schwarber, right? Who's leading off these days and, hitting singles. It's home run or bust. I mean, he's probably under 200.
He's
But
still under 200. Yeah.
yeah, but he's hitting home runs, and guys are on base in front of him, which help. But the analytics have changed the game. They really have. You don't care about what your average is anymore. Nobody cares. They're like, how much do you get on base, and how many extra base hits do you have, and that's what we're going to pay you on. So nobody really cares. Let me tee off and try to get doubles, triples, and homers. And if I strike out, nobody cares about that. So I'll just go back to the dugout and try to get it next time. And I think, with these new stats and the way some front offices run things and what they use as far as metrics go, have killed a little bit of what baseball was and now has become. I mean, taking the shift away now has added some hits to these guys, because you just can't situate your players in certain areas on one side of the field. So that was a rule that I think really benefited the hitters. I like to see that because there's more action.
I was listening to an analysis video the other day, and one of the things they're talking about Arraez and Bo Bichette, and they're leading their leagues in hits. And why are they doing it? Because they have the most amount of hits to the opposite field. Interesting, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, using the whole field is a big deal. If you're able to drive the ball to right center, and that's what I preach to our young men on our team is to try to catch the ball deep and use the middle of the field. Pull power is great, and that'll get you somewhere. But to be able to take a fastball that's on the outer half and understand how to use the opposite side of the field is an art, and I think should be taught a little bit more as youth baseball is, being shown the way.
Well, if Arraez is receiving the Rolex from Soler, he should also be receiving one from his GM, Kim Ng. And, Kim, having much experience throughout baseball, having worked as an assistant GM, working with Major League Baseball, getting a gig, breaking through the barriers as far as being the first female GM, was very calculated in her approach as far as not making a lot of trades, really analyzing, there were a lot of trades that were supposed to happen, didn't happen. And then this one comes through, and man, she looks like a genius right now, obviously, in Minnesota, not looking as great. Help me understand something from, looking at this as an outsider and trying to the reasoning with it, and I tried to look a little bit into numbers, because keep in mind also, obviously, these are not huge market teams as far as salary goes. And I always have to look at salaries, unfortunately, because that plays a part. And so you got, it was traded. So Arraez was traded for Pablo Lopez. In 2022, Lopez was 10 and 10 with a 3.75 ERA. This year, he has not made his team look so great, having a 4.4 ERA. Things happen. It wasn't just Lopez, there were two prospects as well. Apparently, very good prospects. And one of the things they always say, whenever you have a trade with prospects, right, you can look at the how the trade worked out, sometimes for 5-10 years, then how things coincide. Lopez's salary, by the way, for people if they want to take a look, in 2024 to 2026, he's getting paid a whopping 21 million a year, whereas Arraez is at a very, very reasonable salary. Arraez also won the batting title in the AL in 2022. So you take your batting league champion, trade him off for you need pitching, you get pitching. What do you think the reasoning was for each team in this? Like, it didn't make sense. When you saw it as an outsider at the beginning, it makes sense. We had extra hitting for extra pitching. Everybody helps everybody. Was that kind of the idea for this trade in your mind?
I think it all comes down to the GMs when they look at their big board in their office of how the roster is constructed. What do we need? What do we have a surplus of? And what's the best fit for our ball club? And then where, if we do get a guy, can we extend him and give him a salary that's we feel is deemable on our return? I don't know who Minnesota had to replace Araz as far as you know, positioning goes. But if you have some prospects and you have some guys who can, step into that position, then he becomes expendable, so to speak, to send somewhere else where you can fill some gaps. Because, at the end of the day, the Minnesota Twins know the division that they're in, needed pitching, and that it's a quality power arm that you were going to get in Pablo Lopez, right? And if you see him fitting in on your ball club and helping you win the division, so be it. If even if it was 500 in the AL Central, you know, um, you reap the rewards that this trade has made. And unfortunately, that's kind of where the game is you know roster construction. What do we need? What do we have a surplus of? Let's find the best fit with the team that needs what we have, and we'll go from there.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty certain Carlos Correa had something to do with this as far as figuring out the roster and everything else. And the surprise about that he found his way back, by him finding his way back, we got a lot of hitters. We need some pitching. And look, I'm not gonna crap on the Twins. I mean, look at Sonny Gray right now. Like, so you're able to find these pitchers that you don't know, and they're always big arms and big names, and they're just gonna put it together in certain markets, and boom, it comes together. Sonny's been having a great season for them. So I kind of look at totality as well at your overall construction. But in reflection, if they don't sign Korea and keep Arraez, you think they would they take back that trade now in that signing, or would they stay with their construction?
Great question. That's one for the general manager. I mean, we can second guess all we want. Hindsight's 2020. I mean, shoot. I mean, if Araz was hitting 297, would you say the trade is okay right now as opposed to 400? I mean, it's just one of those things where any trade is so difficult to manage. Especially when you have two big leaguers, you can say what you want as far as this trade was good, this trade wasn't good. But at the end of the day, if it makes your ball club better, then that's what you need to do.
Steve Carsey, you and I are in Las Vegas, and we got to put a sports bet on. We do not have a choice. There's a couple bets they're asking us. You have to make this decision now on the spot, knowing it's almost the halfway mark. Ray's gonna be hitting 400 by the end of the year. You're putting the money on. Is it yes or no?
No.
Okay. Ray's gonna be on the list of the 370 hitters. Is he gonna finish with 370 and above? Yes or no?
Yes.
Interesting. You know me, I'm usually the most optimistic person on the planet, and I'm going to be here telling you he's going to hit 410. After watching Olerud every single game, knowing the flirtation with 400, what happens, I don't even know if he's going to reach even the 370 mark. Like, let's be frank. He finishes at 350. It's still a really, really good number. But one of the things to hit 400, I mentioned to you off air, 5 for 5, 3 times in a month. That's not gonna happen again. Like that's astronomical. Like he better have bought like 100 lottery tickets that day when he got the third one. But I just don't see that happening. And you're going to have a lot of 3 for 5 games to mask those 0 for 3s, 0 for 4s, because, like you said, it's a long season. You get tired. Some pitchers figure you out. And let's be frank, in certain situations, they're just not going to pitch him. There's no point, especially if somebody's on base and there's a good chance he'll get a single or double. They may take the walk, right? Like I think the stronger he hits, his OBP will stay strong, but I think his walks are going to go up.
Yeah, but if his walks go up, it's not in that bad. It's
Yeah.
his average doesn't move. So my question to you is, who's in the NL East?
Who's in it?
Yeah, what
Oh, the
teams are
NL
in the
East,
NL East?
the least or the East. So we got the Braves, we got the Mets, we got the Phillies, right? Marlins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Nationals, right?
Right, right,
So
right.
you
Yes.
you look at how many of these teams are going to be in it in September, and how many of these teams you got to look at his schedule and see who he plays in September. Because any team that's out of it in September is going to bring up young arms to put into either their rotation or their bullpen. And if he gets to feast on these young arms, he will have a shot because they're not going to try to pitch around him at that point. They're trying to develop their players. Now, if he's playing a whole bunch of teams that are in it, now you might see the walks go up, or you might see them not pitch to him in certain situations or whatnot. So I think if we really dig deep into this and go and look at what the end of August, beginning of September, and all of September look like for the Marlins schedule, now that there's only 13 games within division, he doesn't have to play the Mets as much. He doesn't have to play the Braves as much or the Phillies as much, who have these top arms on their staff. If he's playing the Oakland A's, the Kansas City Royals, you know, the Washington Nationals, he's playing those three teams or a few other teams are at the bottom, and they have these young kids. You know, no matter how good their stuff is, they're gonna make mistakes. And to a hitter like that, it's like taking candy from a baby.
And pretty cool that the Marlins are staying contention considering that division. They've really pulled
Yes,
off a lot. So I'll give them all the credit in the world. And looking at that lineup, I'm not looking at the Jays lineup. I'm not looking at the Phillies Mets lineup. Like, doesn't have that much protection as far as quality superstars. It doesn't have Aaron Judges and Otani's in the lineup with him. So I would say, extra kudos to him to be able to do what he's doing on that team, in that park, everything else. Just a magical season and just one of the big, big stories in 2023. And it'll be definitely interesting to watch as we get to hit the All-Star break if he's able to do it.
absolutely. And I'm gonna look something up, and I will. I know you will too. The last guy to hit 400, right?
Mhm.
See how many plate appearances and how many walks he actually had that year, and see if they pitch to him and his walks to strikeout ratio. I think that'll give you a really good, idea of where Araz is at this particular point.
As far as Ted Williams back in 1941 with his 406 average.
Yep. We'll
And
see.
he's Ted Williams for a reason. If none of you were around for the days of Ted Williams, go pull up some videos on YouTube and watch Ted Williams swing the bat. It was a beautiful thing to watch.
Sure was.
So as we return back next week, we're going to go back to some team sightings, and we're going to talk about one of the most exciting teams going right now in Major League Baseball. We've covered a lot of them so far, but this one came out of left field for me, and I slept on them, Steve, because they are for real. So we'll see you back next week on The Chosen Journey.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.